about innovation within consumers. The Rodent Shelter NC3R CRACK IT challenge. And the end product of this project, the NestLab warming and monitoring shelter for rodents, which is what you see on the picture here. So I will try and tell you the story of how this happened and what we have learned along the way. So it started with 2 AstraZeneca in vivo scientists seeing the same unmet need for improved post-surgical care. In their discussions, they were fortunate to include another scientist who had previous experience of CRACK IT challenges. So when the call came out for CRACK IT challenges in 2024, they decided to apply. So a small team was formed. We put together an application, took a few hours, not too complicated, and we sent it off. And we actually didn't believe too much in this idea, it being a very simple one. So imagine the joy when it was accepted as one of the challenges. And this is actually one of the first learnings I would like to share, the importance of creating a good team for a project, for any project, a team that can deliver with different expert areas. In our case, in vivo scientists, that's La Jung and Jessica, who work close to the animals, with the animals in the lab. And with veterinarians, in this case, Birgit and Joao, who have a deep understanding of animal needs, of animal behavior, animal welfare side of things. And team leaders, that's me and Elin, who are used to, driving things, making things happen, booking meetings, keeping timelines, pushing projects, all that sort of things. And of course, last but not least, to have the buy-in and the active participation of the leader of the department, in this case, Sofia Östman. So this is the background and the problem statement. So we know, mice and rats are sometimes single-housed and or housed with limited enrichment after a surgical procedure. Rodents are prone to experience hypothermia after anesthesia and surgical interventions. And today, heating can be provided by large externally powered heat beds under the cages, which limits our rats from recovering in their home cages or the specific cages that we call high houses. And they cannot be used for IVC cages, for individually ventilated cages. Also, currently available monitoring systems are large, they are costly, they are complex. And we know that post-operative housing environment influences recovery. And we see an unmet need for I just move my here, an unmet need for a heating device for every cage, providing both warmth and shelter and yet enables monitoring. So the CRACK IT challenges, they are run by the NC3Rs, that's the British 3R Centre, and they post CRACK IT challenges every year. And CRACK IT challenges, they are competition that funds collaborations between industry, academics, and small to medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs, to solve scientific and business challenges involving animals. And there are benefits for all participants. Industry gets access to scientific and technological innovations emerging from the science base, and they do get an end product which meets their needs. Academics have a pathway for exploiting their research, and SMEs are provided with a ready-made market. And just for context, I've added some examples of previous year's challenges and products. And one example is a tamoxifen micropellets encapsulated by taste masking coating. There are several in vitro systems to replace or complement in vivo methods. Another example is syringes for precise injections. And if you're interested, you can read more about this project on the NC3R homepage. And this is how it works. There are 3 parties involved, the sponsors, and that's AstraZeneca in this case. They define the challenges with a view to using the product developed, working with the NC3Rs to set out the business case and the 3Rs benefit. Sponsors are required to provide in-kind contribution and/or funding to help solve the challenges. And in our case, it was only about in-kind contributions and no financial support. Then it's the innovators. In this case, it's the Malsen Medical. These are EU-based SMEs and academics that secure funding and a research contract through a competitive process to develop tools, technologies, or approaches to solve the challenges. And finally, the funders, and that's the NC3Rs. So it works like this triangle you can see here on the slide. The NC3Rs, they have an agreement both with the innovators for funding and project management. They have an agreement with the sponsors for in-kind contribution. And there is also an agreement between the sponsors and the innovators for in-kind contribution and access to products. So this is the challenge that we came up with, the vision of a product that is divided into essential features and possible add-on features. So the essential features of this rodent shelter should be that it provides shelter and warmth, and it should be, of course, preferred and used by the rodents. It should be small, the right size to fit in the cage. It should be easy to use. It should be affordable. It should have adjustable temperature. It should be easy to clean and disinfect. It should be made of a see-through material for visual monitoring. It should obviously be non-toxic and protected from chewing damage. And it should have a wireless charging with battery time of at least 24 hours. And then for the possible add-on features, it could, for example, provide real-time heart rate, body temperature, and breathing frequency that could be monitored and transmitted wirelessly to a device. It could be able to notify on changes for a timely welfare intervention. For example, if there is no movement or or the breathing frequency goes down. And it could have a built-in capability to add on individualized data by microchip and tracer technique. So this is how it works, the actual process. So for us, it started in January 2024, where NC3Rs had an open call to identify areas of scientific 3Rs need. And this is where our idea for the rodent shelter was born. And our team was formed and we wrote the application. And then during summer 2024, it was our idea or application was developed into a challenge brief. So we had several meetings with NC3R to turn our idea into a clear and understandable vision for a real product. So this document was worked on, finalized, and co-sponsors was identified, in this case, Gothenburg University. And this was a strong recommendation from the NC3Rs for us to find co-sponsors to work together for the perfect product and also to be able to test the product in various environments and different vivariums and things like that. So in September 2024, the challenge was launched and it was open for application by innovators. meaning that our idea was out there and innovators were encouraged to apply. So we were contacted by several innovators, and they wanted to discuss, our vision and what they could offer. And the deadline for this process was in October 2024, and then in November, the review panel was created. So it was the NC3R and AstraZeneca together, creating a panel to identify 3 shortlisted innovators. And this was a really big effort for us. We needed to read probably, I don't remember, but probably up to 20 or so applications with very, very different solutions to our challenge. And we needed to try and understand which of the proposals was most likely to fly. So fortunately, in this review panel, there was an advisory team with expertise in different fields like electrical engineering, veterinarians, business operations, commercializations, and so on. All of the things that we know nothing about. Our expert area is limited to in vivo work. So in December 2024, the review panel had 3 shortlisted applicants identified, and those 3 were invited to present and discuss their solution. So together, the NC3Rs, the advisory team, and us from AstraZeneca, we identified the best innovator. And in January 2025, our challenge was awarded, meaning it was out there. And we could then let Malsen Medical know in March that they were the chosen innovator for a single phase project up to 18 months. And the challenge was awarded to develop NestLab, a shelter for mice and rats with an integrated smart control module. And the award was on £150,000. And from March 2025, and since then actively ongoing, we are collaborating with Malsen Medical. And this project is moving fast. We want results. We all want results. So we have set up bi-weekly online meetings. We have had Malsen visiting us at AstraZeneca several times. They have performed user tests, prototype tests. We have performed in vivo studies. We have had presentations, seminars, discussions within our group and also with the co-sponsors, etc. And we do have quarterly follow-ups with NC3Rs. And during this time, the most important contribution from our side at AstraZeneca are the in vivo studies. So this is what we have tested. We needed to start testing the safety, of course, of the product. So we did a study on group-housed female mice. We did a study on single-housed male mice. And we did a small study, and we need to do more there, but we have started on a group-housed male rats. And you can see on the images here how the NestLab looks, or the prototype actually. So the primary objectives were 2 in these studies. First one being animal safety and the other one being device robustness. So for animal safety, we did twice daily checks for movement and posture and fur condition, burns, and any other animal welfare observation. For the device robustness, we did twice daily checks for gnawing and scratching damage on the device, both on the outside and on the inside, tilting of the device if they could turn it over upside down, are there any urine or any feces on the device? And if so, did that somehow damage the electronics? And the secondary objectives was preference. We needed to know, do they prefer a heated or a non-heated NestLab? We also looked at the nesting quality and the location of the nesting. Did they nest inside the NestLab or outside? Was it an organized nest or a scattered nest? And these are all signs on animal welfare. So the first study on group-housed females, we had 6 cages with 3 female mice per cage. The study went on for 21 days. We tested 20 degrees, 27 degrees, and 32 degrees. And we also added an extra arm in that study with a rat house, which is a little bit bigger than the mouse house. And from this first study, we learned that the NestLab is safe for rodents. The electronics, transfer of data, the heater, the house, everything worked. There were no issues whatsoever. We also learned that rodents integrate NestLab with a common nesting material, but not necessarily building the nest inside the NestLab. And that's why we tried the rat version of the NestLab, the bigger one, and we could see that they did prefer a little bit larger house when it comes to group-housed females. The next study was on single-housed male mice, where we had 8 cages with 1 mouse per cage for 1 week study. And in each cage, there were 2 NestLabs, one set to 20 degrees, that's room temperature, and the other one to 32 degrees. And we could very, very clearly see that the single-housed male mice, they prefer the warm NestLab. You can see on the image that all the nesting material is in the NestLab to the right, the warm one. And we also tested a smaller version of the NestLab that could fit into an IVC cage. And we could also see that the angled house is safe and it is used by the single-housed male mice. Right, so the next steps. So currently studies are run at Gothenburg University, the co-sponsors of this challenge. And they are trying it on their strains and their animal models. What we want to do next is to perform a larger rat study to look at what they prefer and the safety aspects. We would also like to test it on cold-sensitive animal strains, for example, DB mice or OB mice. We know that they often are cold and they like some extra heating. We have done a small pilot study with post-surgery that turned out really good, but we want to do some more testing for post-surgery. We want to try it in breeding because there is a hypothesis that some mouse strains could increase their breeding efficiency if the temperature was higher. So we want to test that as well. And the last thing is that there is now an improved prototype, the NestLab 2.0, that we will also try out. And you will hear more about that. And my last slide, this is the team where we are working in the lab. So that was all from me. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Lena, for an interesting presentation. So now we have Bjorn Olsen that's going to talk more about the NestLab. So you can take it away, Bjorn.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll try to share my screen here and then off we go. So I am from a company called Malsen Medical, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Alan and Alonso. And we have actually set up a company called NestLab to industrialize this, so it becomes more than just a research project, so it actually becomes available. So today I will talk a bit about the innovation and development process for such a product, how we went about doing it with our colleagues from AstraZeneca and the university. I'll talk a bit about the system capabilities, what it can do, and then there's a hands-on demonstration that you can all participate on at the end. So for these kind of activities, we try to spend quite a bit of time to understand the requirements and needs and understand what's in the market. And it's been super useful to visit the sites at the university. We also visited AstraZeneca in the UK as well as Sweden on several occasions just to understand what are the real requirements. And one of the things that we see is that, yes, there are some heating devices in the market, but they're all required to be plugged in. And in the animal facilities, for example, at AstraZeneca, there is no power. So obviously those devices cannot be used. So lots of these kind of practical requirements we try to fully understand, and this is a never-ending process to continuously understand the requirements of each location and of each group of users. Then we came up with lots of ideas how to solve this, what could be the best approach, and we build lots and lots of prototyping. So our background is from making medical devices. We have more than 20 years of making critical medical devices, both pharmaceutical delivery products, but also standalone medical devices. So we follow quite a stringent process of how to create products, because you have to be careful that you select the right technology, the right material, etc. Then we went into an evaluation and feasibility, also technical, to see can we actually do this. And we made some wired functional prototypes that we used for usability testing. So we did testing in Sweden, we did testing at university and AstraZeneca, and in the UK with lots of different disciplines, with scientists, with those that are doing cage cleaning, with all sorts of people of different ages, just to get an idea of how do they find the device. And of course, IT is also important here. So we discussed a lot with IT to make sure such a product can also get into the laboratories without too much hassle. We then proceeded to make battery-operated prototypes, and at this stage it becomes quite difficult and expensive to make big changes. So we tried to really spend time at the beginning quickly to get feedback. So it's been super important to work with Lena and her team to get feedback, hands-on feedback on the concepts. Then, as you heard, there's been a process now for the last many months of doing in vivo tests with those devices we made. We made 8 fully working battery-operated prototypes that have been used in the labs. And now we have been spending time with engineering and focusing on getting a production-ready device that we will then certify and ensure that can be made available. That is a slightly longer journey, but we are close to the end of that now. So it's been a very rapid project, largely because there were very good requirements and a very eager team, so we didn't have any waiting anywhere. This is the process that we had from the early concept. So on the very left, you'll see what we had in February this year, which were the earliest ideas of a modular system where you have an electronics hub, which can then sit on different extensions, which also has a charger. We had some thoughts about maybe an app or maybe some kind of online idea. This was the concepts. Then we looked at lots of the different cages to make sure that it can fit within a cage. We did lots of electronics work to make sure that it can actually function with sensors and all the rest of it, heating, accuracy, and whatnot. Then you see a picture of the usability testing. These were the wired devices, which also were fully operational, but then wired. And of course, wires are not great for rodents because they like to bite these wires. So that's clearly just for usability testing. This was a setup we had, I think, at AstraZeneca, where the users would test the device by clicking and feeling it, taking it in their hands. And then we took all that feedback and made the device better. Then you'll see some prototyping. These were the prototypes we made over summer, actually. And in the in vivo test, you'll see the disinfection. So these devices, of course, go into disinfection. So we support different types of cleaning and disinfection, including steam sterilization for the plastic parts. And of course, this device is reusable. So it can be reused for several years. That's the plan. Now we are working more on the engineering to make it more compact, even more reliable. And as we spoke about, making it slightly taller inside without making it taller on the outside. And then we are jumping into production. We've actually ordered 50 units, which will be delivered in the next few weeks. So that's quite a rapid development from February till the end of the year, but we hope to have the first devices ready. So from our side, the key learnings have been to work very closely with the sponsors. So we're quite lucky because we are just in Oslo, so we're not far away. So we take a train, then we are at AstraZeneca, we can discuss face-to-face. It's great to have meetings on Teams and online, but it's much better to meet face-to-face. We've met many times. We've also had the opportunity to discuss with all the different disciplines that work with animals. Those that work, as I said, in IT, cleaning, the technicians, they're all equally important for the product to make it successful. To see these facilities and learn as much as we can. Every facility is quite different in the size of the cages and the procedures they have for practical handling of the animals. And it has to work within each workflow. And we've done lots and lots and lots of prototypes to test hands-on early. We also, like we do in medical, you don't try to make new technology. You pick the best technology that works, and then you put it together into a working product. That's what we've done here. So there's no risk taken. The battery that we've chosen are the same as you have in an electric Volvo, for example. It's conservative, but it works. We also work with experts. We know a little bit, but we have a wide network of people that we work with to make sure that we get the right solutions in every area. And we try to be very responsive. So if something is going wrong, then we act on it to learn, to make sure we can fix it and make it better for next time. And we also have had a great focus to developing a great collaboration with our colleagues to have a positive atmosphere in the team. And that's helped a lot to be able to talk about the difficult things, because you need to be able to listen when people have issues, and that only happens in an environment which is open. The capabilities of this system, I can talk a bit about that. So here you see a NestLab on the left. So we have 3 buttons to control temperature up and down and enter the menu. There's a simple color display. We have different temperature sensors. We have a temperature probe near the heater. We have an ambient sensor, and we have a thermal imaging camera, which also gets that sense temperature, but then of the rodent itself. We have a sensor to measure the tilt in case it would tip over, it turns off the heating. We have a proximity sensor, which we can use to detect breathing rates, and we will also integrate an RFID reader. It's in there, and that's planned for the next software generation, so you can read the RFID tag of the rodents inside. It has a radiation heater, similar to what you would have on your terrace, so it heats based on radiation. We have a rechargeable battery. Actually, there's 3 batteries in this pack, which last for about 48 hours. and it has roughly 1.5 hours charge time from completely empty. It's also contains Bluetooth. We don't have it sort of fully directly online to the cloud because this is a sensitive IT topic. So it's connected to a local Bluetooth mesh within the laboratory. And then you can connect that up to the cloud to manage these devices remotely, which we'll demonstrate at the end of this. So there are the different options. We made the angled on the left to be compatible with absolutely every cage. So that will fit inside every cage. The mouse house is suitable for also many cages, and it's very good for after recovery, for example, where you may not have the feeding tray. And then the rat extension, of course, is much larger. Then we have a charger, and then we have also a USB dongle when you want to connect this up. So heat control is relevant. Those heaters that I've seen don't have control, and I think you need control to make sure that it's safe. So what you see on the right here is a thermal imaging camera from NestLab, which shows 3 mice inside NestLab. And the color indicates how warm each mouse is. And what we then do is that we regulate the temperature based on either the heater itself or the maximum temperature of the rodent. And we found that we can actually quite accurately get a good surface temperature. So the surface temperature will be typically 33 degrees of a mice. And we can then adjust the heater based on the actual temperature of the rodent. So that's important for us to be able to control this. We do this every 5 seconds. And of course, all the sensor data we can then also read out and we can see the response. So we can check for occupancy. Is it occupied, yes or no? We do that based on 3 different sensors looking at the kind of changes in time. We are working on, and we can also detect number of rodents inside. We'll make that more accurate with use of some machine learning tricks, but that's also possible because of this camera. We can see how many are inside. And we can, of course, calculate an occupancy rates, for example, during the last so-and-so. And we can see which rodent is there when we have RFID inside. We have capability to measure respiratory rate. We are working on in which boundary conditions this works accurately. But we can, at least in theory, get respiratory rate, magnitude, and the accuracy of such calculation. Typically that, of course, only happens at rest, so when they are resting inside. We get a number which indicates the activity. How active are the animals, running in and out? Are they running inside, just resting? We get a score for that over time. Then we have a very conservative heating based on feedback. And of course, if it was to tip over, I think the rats, if they really, really want to, they can probably at least move it. But then it will turn off the heating. We also have certifications for all components. So FDA certified material, for example, electronic certified, Bluetooth certified, and cybersecurity considerations. So it becomes not a fully medical device because it doesn't need certification by a notified body, but it follows all the safety standards that we normally do for a medical product. And of course, it can be reprocessed, so cleaning and disinfection is supported. What we also do is that you can connect several of these devices, for example, in a laboratory, in a vivarium facility, into a computer, which then relays it up to the cloud. So you can then see and control your devices remotely. So you can monitor and control your devices remotely, and you can gather this data in real time or into a database, of course, which you can then store for later. You can also set up alerts. So for example, if the temperature or something, activity level, such and such is of a certain magnitude, you can get an alert and get notified by this, or a pup is born or something like that. We also intend to integrate with Ticket Lab, so you can both pull and push some data from Ticket Lab, so you get the cages and all the rest of it. We're working now on enabling some AI big data analysis. You can ask, for example, were there some anomalies during the study that I recorded data for now? And you can get some flexibility to analyze the data. So it's not static based on what we think you want, but you can then interrogate the data as you wish. But these are things that are coming over time. So what you'll be able to do now is to participate in a demonstration. I will demonstrate first, and then you can do it yourself. What will happen is that it will be chaos, because lots of people controlling one NestLab is not what we intend to do in reality. So there'll be some rights and roles, but this is just for fun. So we have a NestLab sitting up here in Norway, and this NestLab is looking like this. So you can go into this page, which I'll show you a link to soon. You can then change the temperature of the target, and then you'll see down here that it is changing the temperature over time. You can also get the heat map, and then you can see the heat map inside the NestLab, and it gives you an idea of what the temperature is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the temperature down to 22 degrees target. I'm going to reload my page just so that the graph starts from scratch. And then all of you can go and scan this with your telephone, or go into demo.nestlab.no. And if you do that, then you will get to this page, and I will ask anyone to just increase the temperature to, say, 32 degrees, and then get a heat map picture. And then you'll see that it will update on my side, it will update on your side, and everyone gets the same data at the same time. That's how this works. This is just for one NestLab. You would typically have maybe 20 NestLabs connected here. So you'll see 20 NestLabs in a screen. This is just a demo. So what you'll see now is that the ambient temperature stays the same, but the target temperature increases in line with what you set as the target. So if somebody can put it to 40 degrees now, just to be a little bit aggressive, and if we then wait 10 seconds, and then you can push, some of you push the update heat map again, then it will pull the latest image. The heat map is actually quite data heavy, so we don't do that real time, at least not for so many devices. And now you'll see that it's obviously warm. This is not a mouse. This is simply a demonstration. So it's not something that's going to injure anyone. And we have limited to set it to maximum 40 degrees. This is something we can also change. We can configure it so you can have a safety margin here. Try to set it down to 20 degrees again. And then what you'll see then is, so if somebody can put it down to 20 degrees, you'll see that it will gradually go down to 20 degrees again. So in this view, you'll see the battery, you'll see the occupancy rate, you'll see the ambient temperature, whether it's occupied, and it thinks it's occupied now because of this crazy change in temperature. And you'll get an activity level. This just shows an idea of what it can be. So now you see the temperatures go down, and then gradually the heat will then drop off. So you can just go into this demonstration anytime if you want to play with the NestLab. It's one way to do it. The way it will work, of course, is that you would log in, and then you get a view of your dongles, and then you get a view of devices connected to those, and then you can control all of those devices. And they will have a location, typically, so you can identify where they are. That concludes the presentation for the device, how we have so far developed it, our collaboration, and an online demo. Thank you so much for your interest.